Welcome back to The Exchange. These wildfires in the Los Angeles area are forcing tens of thousands of people to be evacuating or under evacuation. One of those evacuees is CoreLogic's president of Insurance Solutions, Garret Gray. Diana Olick is back with us to kick things off for this discussion and interview. And Garret, of course, we feel terribly for everything that's happened. We appreciate you being able to join us to talk about it. Diana, kick things off for us.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, again, we are so sorry for your losses. We know you live in Pacific Palisades. Your kids are in school there. First, tell us what happened to you yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was an experience like I've never experienced. I was about 30 minutes away from where my kids were at school in my office, up Sunset, and got a call from people at our house saying that the hill behind us was on fire. I had a text from the school saying, come get your kids. And I was just trying to get down Sunset as fast as possible so that, and safely as possible so I could get my kids. The gridlock was really incredible. Once I got close to my street, which is Bienvenida, which is kind of in the heart of Pacific Palisades, the cars were just stopped and and people were honking with a lot of panic, trying to get people to move. There was no place for people to move. I actually had somebody trying to pick up my kids, and they did pick up my kids, but they were stuck in that gridlock on my street. And they had to park their car and abandon the car. And I had to ask them to send my kids running down the street. And I was running up the street into the smoke to go get them, and was lucky enough to get them and be able to make a U-turn on Sunset and start headed towards Beverly Hills to get away from the impacted area.
But you are all safe, thankfully, and evacuated from the area. You told me you don't know what's happened to your home yet. Ironically, as we said, you are CoreLogic's president of Insurance Solutions. You're steeped in this kind of climate data and risk, and there are a slew of climate risk firms putting these scores on both residential and commercial real estate, including CoreLogic. What do these scores mean to you personally, and what should they mean to every homeowner in America?
Yeah, I bought this house so my kids could go to school on the same street. And I did that knowing that the CoreLogic fire risk score for my house was in the 80s out of 100, which is not good. Or it's high. It's essentially saying there's a high amount of risk. But we did that knowingly. Insurance has obviously been difficult to place, but we were able to have it placed. And over the years, I've watched my CoreLogic risk score continue to climb. And so, obviously accurately now it's been impacted. And I think these scores are really important for carriers and homeowners and people who are purchasing property to consider as they're looking at properties. And it's going to be helpful, hopefully, for carriers to get the right kind of data so that they can figure out how to price risk, and hopefully we can attract more carriers to come to places like California as opposed to carriers that are having to feel like they lead the state.
Garret, it's Kelly here. I have so many different questions, and what you just said was fascinating because I wonder, okay, now what happens? You're presumably going to rebuild the house. I understand what you're saying about the school being on the road. We live in a neighborhood like that for the same reason. So, what do you do now? What do you expect other people kind of around you to do? And what's the impact ultimately going to be? Because like you said, I don't know. Will you be able to get coverage now going forward? What's going to happen to the pricing and availability? I mean, it's actually surprising me that you said it was fairly predictable that something like this would happen, because to us watching from afar, it just looks insane that something like this could happen to these neighborhoods.
I think it's interesting as you've been watching the risk scores climb, because our area has not had a major fire since 91, so 30 years. And so, but the data was starting to show our scientists that the risk continued to get worse. And if you think about the rains that we've had over the last couple of years, the foliage has grown, so there's more fuel. It's become even more risky than it already was. I think what's the long-term prospects? We're going to have to figure this out as a society. And this is not just a California wildfire problem. If you think about people in Florida and on the coastal areas, even in Texas, we have hail risk scores that are off the charts. I mean, there is so many different perils that carriers and property owners are having to contend with today that it really requires a ton of data to figure out what are the best ways to price these risks so that we can get more insurance carriers to be able to write policies so there's more competition and more ability for people to get coverage.
And
Otherwise,
Garret, you said you do have coverage from insurers and those around you. A lot of them do, but you also know a lot about the claims and reconstruction system going on. You talked about concerns over supply chain. When all of this is over and done and you have to rebuild this huge swath of Los Angeles, what is that going to look like?
Yeah, when last night I got a video from a neighbor at 12 o'clock with a house just 2 doors down from me that was on fire, engulfed in flames. And so last night, I wasn't sure, is my house going to be there or not? And today I've got some reports that my house is probably still there. I think it's really important for everyone that's watching to know that even when you see houses that look intact, we don't know what happened on the inside. We don't know about the smoke damage, and the whole area has been devastated. And so there's not going to be power to this area. It's going to be very difficult to live in. And the reconstruction efforts that is going to be required to get Pacific Palisades in particular back up and running is going to be massive, and it's going to require contractors, some of which are my friends and have been in this space with me for 20 years. They're going to be coming from all over the country to try to meet the demand, because there's just going to be so many structures that need to be remediated and fixed, even ones that you can't tell from the outside.